when somebody says something so stupid like that, and like Trump says, oh, they let out all the mental institutions and the prisoners of countries, the opponent has a responsibility to say, which countries?
Yeah.
Tell me which countries released all their prisoners and mental inmates, et cetera. What are you talking about, post-birth abortion? That doesn't even make any sense, you deranged lunatic. So, yeah, I'm not getting on Jake Tapper or Dana Bash. The guy opposed to you is supposed to make those super obvious points.
Yeah.
Look, at this point, this conversation about whether Joe Biden's going to drop out is over. He's definitely going to drop out. The donors no longer think he's a good investment. And think about this, Piers. If he doesn't drop out, imagine what history is going to say about him. That he put his monstrous ego, maybe an ego even larger than Donald Trump's, above the needs of the country, the party, the voters. It's an unbearable thought. He would become one of the great villains of American history. And there's actually a really easy way to replace him. All he has to do is say, I'm out. And then we go back to a traditional convention where the delegates decide. That's almost always how Americans
decide their
I think candidates anyway.
Yeah, we discussed it before, but two incumbent Democrat presidents since the end of World War II have both stood down in election year, Harry Truman and Lyndon Johnson. So there's a precedent here for this to happen. It just hasn't happened where the incumbent president doesn't want to go. Jenna, I want to bring you in just on one point, which is the behaviour of Jill Biden after the debate. Watch this.
Oh, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie!
God.
I mean, I found that pretty painful to watch. She then led a child of 4 more years. And the reason it's painful is she's Dr. Jill Biden. This is her husband. He's in front of maybe 100 million people in America alone, tens of millions more watching around the world, being utterly humiliated, clearly has onset dementia, and is being dragged through an incredibly embarrassing, humiliating process of this debate, being mocked and laughed at around the world. And rather than do what any normal spouse would do, I think, in that situation, which is be protective and save Joe Biden from himself, she seems even keener than he is for him to carry on and to perpetrate and continue to perpetrate the lie that there's nothing wrong here. He answered every question. Well, he didn't even understand most of the questions from what I could see. What did you think about her as the First Lady and her responsibility here?
Well, she's clearly married to power, not to Joe Biden personally, and that's incredibly tragic. I mean, I was watching this debate with my parents who have been happily married for almost 50 years, and my mom was almost in tears looking at how frail and tragic of a figure Joe Biden was on stage. We all said, our heart went out to him. I mean, I could sympathize with Van Jones on the panel after CNN, moved to tears, saying he just looked terrible. Everybody knows that he clearly is sick. He is unable to fulfill his duties. And yet here is Jill Biden, the one person in his life that should be telling him, listen, you've got to step down, helping facilitate that, looking out for his best interests, not to mention the country as the First Lady, but his own best interests. And she's the one who's standing up, treating him like a child. I mean, it was like she was in a preschool class and telling him as a toddler, you did a good job, little one. You did. I mean, it was so unbearably pathetic that this woman would prioritize this.
No, I've got 4 kids. It's like when your 4-year-old comes last in a race on sports day and you tell them you did a great job. That's really what it felt like to me. It's an absolute obvious lie. Everyone saw your kid come last, but you don't want them to be too upset. And I've been really struck by the immediate, because I used to work at CNN for 4 years. I was there on election nights in 2012 and stuff. I have never seen a CNN panel react the way they did at the immediate end of that debate. John King absolutely lacerated Biden's performance in a way I've never seen him do. Van Jones, like you say, was sort of tearful. David Axelrod pounded him, but they all did. And I was really struck by, wow, we've got a clip of some of this. Let's take a look.
As we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party. It started minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists. It involves elected officials. It involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say, in moments in the debate later, the president got better and got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little halting. The contrast between the two candidates.
It wasn't a little halting. The end of that debate, the summary by Joe Biden was incomprehensible gibberish. Well, joining me now is Joe Biden's former White House advisor, Mo Vela. You know, Mo, I wrote a column for the New York Post, which is just going up now, where I said I genuinely felt very sad. I've never interviewed Joe Biden, but I had a phone call once with him after his son Beau died. It was a very moving and emotional conversation we had. He was vice president at the time. It was 10 years ago. And I remember every word of that. And he was somebody I just was very impressed by, actually, in the way he handled that call and the reasons that we had it. When I watched Joe Biden last night, I didn't recognize that person. He is not the person he used to be. And I felt a real sense of sadness, as I would for any old person clearly suffering now from some